It doesn't take a war to claim millions of lives. Even a disease can do it silently. Friends, whenever I'm saying the word disease, what do we mean by disease? Friends, disease is nothing but any such conditions that doesn't allow our normal functioning of our body, which means in disease, we're not able to carry out our daily functions. And if not treated properly, it could be very lethal. It can kill us too. Today, we are going to discuss about various types of diseases, how they are contaminated, how they are communicated from one person to another person, what are the causative organisms, etc. So, without any further delay, we are going to start the topic. So, friends, today we are going to cover disease classification, bacterial disease, viral disease, protozoan disease, fungal disease, etc. Now, first of all, we must understand the classification of diseases. Now, how do we get the diseases, be it by birth or after birth? Disease can be classified into two categories. These are congenital diseases and acquired diseases. Now, congenital diseases are nothing but diseases we get by birth, okay, such as color blindness, hemophilia, etc. But after birth, whatever we acquired from the environment, from the surrounding, these are known as acquired disease. Whatever we acquire from our surroundings, this is known as acquired disease. Now, based on the mode of transmission, the diseases, acquired diseases can be transferred, can be classified into two categories. These are nothing but communicable or infectious and non-communicable or non-infectious. Communicable diseases are those which can be transferred from one person to another person, whereas non-communicable diseases are those which cannot be transferred from one person to another person by any means. Now, example of communicable disease, smallpox, ringworms, etc. or flu. Whereas example of non-contagious or non-communicable or non-infectious diseases are like cancer, etc. So without any further delay, we are going to discuss about the various types of diseases caused by various organisms. Now friends, we are going to discuss about the various disease causing organisms. Now, the various disease causing organisms are known as pathogens. Pathogens are nothing but the disease causing organisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa, etc., as well as some virus. Okay, so friends, we are going to discuss the various bacterial diseases now. These are, first of all, we are going to discuss about the diphtheria. It is one of the very important diseases. Okay, it is caused by Corynea bacterium diphtheria, and the site of infection for this particular disease is the larynx, skin, nasal and genital passage. Larynx, that is the voice box, skin, nasal and genital passage. Now, what is the mode of transmission? Droplet infection, which means droplet from the person who is infected with diphtheria. If that droplet transferred from one another person who is non-infected, that person will also get the infection or will also be affected by this particular disease. Now, what are the symptoms of this diphtheria disease? Fever, sore throat, hoarseness, difficulty in breathing are some of the symptoms of diphtheria. Now, there is one more common disease, that is cholera, and it is waterborne. It is waterborne. What is the causative organism? It's that Vibrio cholerae. Vibrio cholerae. Site of infection for this disease is intestine. What are the mode of transmission? Contaminated food and water. Contaminated food and water, but most of the times it is by contaminated water. And what are the symptoms? Severe diarrhea and dehydration. Whenever diarrhea happens, we tend to lose water from our body and that leads to dehydration. Moving towards the next slide, friends, we are having tetanus, and it is caused by Clostridium tetani. Now, what is the site of infection for this particular disease? Is our muscle is affected, which means there is spasms of our muscles, which means nothing but the cramps. What are the mode of infections? Through wound infection. When our wound is infected by this particular bacteria, Clostridium tetani, this disease occurs. Now, what are the symptoms? Rigidity of jaw muscle, increased heartbeat rate, spasm of the muscles of the jaw and face. That is why this particular disease is known as lockjaw disease. Now, there is one more disease which we know very common. It is known as typhoid. Typhoid, and it is also known as enteric fever. This is caused by the organism or the bacteria known as Salmonella typhi, and the site of infection for this particular disease is intestine. Now, what are the modes of transmission? Through contaminated food and water, which means we can say that typhoid is also one more waterborne disease. What are the symptoms for this particular disease? Is like headache, abdominal discomfort, fever and diarrhea, and ultimately it will lead to dehydration. Dehydration. There's one more disease known as pneumonia. Pneumonia. This particular disease is caused by the bacteria known as Streptococcus pneumoniae. Streptococcus pneumoniae. The site which gets infected by this particular disease is lungs, and the mode of transmission is nothing but droplet infection. What are the symptoms? Fever, cough, painful breathing, and brown sputum. So these are the symptoms of this particular disease known as pneumonia. There's one more important disease that the bacteria causes. It is nothing but tuberculosis caused by the bacteria Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Again, the site of infection is lungs, and it is also transmitted through droplet infections, and the symptoms are thick mucopurulent nasal discharge, which means the nasal discharge is very thick and there is a difficulty in breathing too. So, moving towards the next slide, friends, we are having the viral diseases. The viral diseases. So, we have common cold, mumps, measles, viral hepatitis, chickenpox, poliomyelitis, dengue fever, chikungunya, etc. So, measles is caused by rubella virus. It is a type of RNA virus, and there is one more class for this. This is the paramyxovirus. So, both of these viruses are causing the disease measles. Now, what is the site of infection? Skin and respiratory tract, which means our windpipe, lungs, etc. is compromised in this particular disease. Now, what are the mode of infection? Droplet infection. And what are the symptoms? Sore throat, runny nose, cough, fever, reddish rashes on the skin, neck and ears, which means rashes occurs in this particular diseases. Now, viral hepatitis is also one of the very important diseases asked in the examination, and in this particular disease, it is caused by hepatitis B virus, hepatic, which means liver. So, our liver is affected in this particular disease. The mode of infection is parenteral route blood transfusion. Blood transfusion is one of the cause for this particular disease, and the symptoms include liver damage, jaundice, nausea, yellowish eyes, fever and pain in the abdomen. So, if we are having hepatitis, these are the symptoms. It can be observed in the person. So, again we have, friends, chickenpox, poliomyelitis. Chickenpox is one such disease that is very contagious, which means easily it can communicate. Now, chickenpox is caused by varicella zoster virus. It's a DNA virus, and the site of infection is respiratory tract, skin and nervous system. Now, what are the modes of infection? Droplet infection and direct contact with the infected person. Now, in this, the symptoms are mild fever, itchy skin, rash and blisters. Multiple blisters occurs on the skin. Now there's one more important disease. It is nothing but poliomyelitis, often known as polio. Now, polio is caused by poliovirus. What are the site of infection? Intestine, brain, spinal cord, etc. gets affected by this particular virus. Now, what are the mode of infection? Droplet infection through fecal oral route. Fecal, which means the waste material, the digestive waste of humans. Now, what are the symptoms? Fever, muscular stiffness, weakness, paralysis, and respiratory failure. In some extreme cases, persons contaminated with this particular virus, they die. Moving towards the next slide, friends, we are having diseases caused by protozoa. So, this very common disease known as malaria, it is caused by a protozoa known as Plasmodium. Plasmodium. Affected organ, affected site or affected organ is RBC, red blood cells, and liver. Now, carrier is female Anopheles mosquito, and the symptoms is fever with shivering. In malaria, fever is one of the symptoms. Moving towards the next slide, friends, we are having sleeping sickness. Sleeping sickness, in this particular disease, our brain gets affected caused by a protozoa known as trypanosoma, and the carrier of this particular disease is say flies. Remember, friends, whenever any particular pathogen is being carried by any other organism, these organisms or carriers are known as vectors. Vectors, these are known as vectors. What are the symptoms? Fever with severe sleep, which means in this particular disease you will feel sleepy, extremely sleepy you will be feeling. Now there is other diseases such as diarrhea, kala-azar, etc. Amoebiasis. This is one very important disease, is often asked in the examination. In this particular disease, our large intestine is compromised or affected, caused by a protozoa known as Entamoeba histolytica. There is no particular known vector for this disease, but abdominal pain and diarrhea are the symptoms of this particular disease. Now, moving towards the next slide, we are having some fungal diseases. Friends, now we are going to discuss about the fungal diseases. Basically, we are going to discuss about the disease and pathogens. Most of the times in the fungal diseases are characterized by itchiness. And ringworm is one such disease that is caused by trichophyton, and it is characterized by itchy sensations in our body. Now there are certain other diseases such as aspergillosis caused by Aspergillus fumigatus, etc. Moving towards the next slide, we are having, now friends, we are going to discuss about the protein energy malnutrition diseases. Now friends, what are PEM or protein energy malnutrition diseases? When the developing child is not given adequate amount of protein, it leads to certain conditions known as protein energy malnutrition diseases. Now these are of two types. One is kwashiorkor and the other one is marasmus. So I am going to discuss what are the symptoms of this particular two PEM or protein energy malnutrition diseases. Now see, in kwashiorkor the hair becomes sparse, though there is an absence of protein or inadequate amount of protein is present in the body, but fat is present. That is why the belly becomes swollen. The belly becomes swollen. On the other hand, in marasmus, the hair is normal, but the appearance is like old man and wrinkled, and limbs are having very little muscle and fat, and the rib cage becomes partially visible or prominent. So this is the condition of marasmus. Now, how these diseases can be treated? If adequate amount of protein are given to the developing children, we can get rid of such protein energy malnutrition diseases that are kwashiorkor or marasmus. Now moving towards the next slide, I am going to give you a holistic idea about endemic, epidemic and pandemic. We all faced the era of COVID, is not it? We know it was the pandemic era. Now, the different aspects such as endemic and epidemic we must learn. Now, what is endemic? This is nothing but a constant presence of disease in a particular area or particular region, and it is without importations from outside, which means endemic disease are particularly confined in a particular region, whereas epidemic is something different. Now, sudden increase in the number of disease above what is normally accepted in a particular geographical area, this is known as epidemic. Okay, this is known as epidemic, such as pneumonia plague in Surat in the year 1994. Now, what is pandemic? We can consider that pandemic is a kind of epidemic, but with the help of external importation. Now, an epidemic that has spread over the several countries or continents, usually affecting a large number of people, such as COVID-19. So this is the basic difference between endemic, epidemic, and pandemic. In endemic, there is a particular disease which is present in a particular area, whereas in epidemic, there is a sudden increase in one particular disease, normal than what is expected. Okay, more than the normal expected value. And pandemic is a kind of epidemic that is spread all over the world, and basically it is due to traveling or external importation from outside. So this is the brief difference between the endemic, epidemic, and the pandemic. Now friends, if you want to learn more topics in a simple and holistic manner, stay connected with Edufy.